Hello everyone and welcome to Juan Between the Pages. My name is Juan and in today's video we're going to discuss Fairy Corn. A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. Oh boy, get ready. This video is the first one of a brand new series called I Read Books People Told Me Not To. Because I'm masochistic. And I know I'm late to the ACOTAR party, but you know, better late than never. But at the same time, this is a party that I wish I haven't attended. So I don't know what to think. Before jumping right into today's video, hi, I'm Juan. Thank you for watching this video. Consider subscribing to the channel, like this video down below, and tell me, have you ever read ACOTAR? Do you really want to read this book? And if you have, tell me what are your opinions down below. And remember that this video reflects my own opinions and experience while reading this book. So please be respectful with it. And without further ado, let's get started with today's video. The story follows Farah. She's a 19-year-old girl living in a small town with her family. She has a crippled father and two sisters, and she has to hunt, and she has to do a lot of things to keep their family alive because they're short of money, and she's the only person they can depend on. The two sisters don't have much to do in the story, but I have to say that I love Nesta. She's so shady and I absolutely adored her because the first chapters were so boring and I think that Nesta spiced it up a little bit. So apparently in this world there are horrifying creatures named fairies and the humans are scared of them, and the world of the fairies is separated from the world of the humans by a wall. The funny thing is that every single time I think about fairies, I think about cottagecore, wholesome creatures of good. And then this book tells me that this is a fairy. So Farah does something that breaks the treaty with the fairies. And then one night, this huge monster daddy fairy comes to their house and he takes Farah with him to the world of the fairies. So Farah moves to the Supreme Court now with her captor, who transforms in this hot fairy now. Even though we cannot see his face because they all wear animal masks, he has a fox mask because there's this plague and also a curse. I don't know, I wasn't paying attention, but this was really stupid. I think the author just needed a reason to put masks, animal masks, in the story. I don't know why, maybe fetishism? There's a lot of fetishism in this book, for sure. But hey, you do you, that's fine. I want to start my criticism of this book with a positive note. I think that the lore and the world building is pretty good. I actually liked more the parts where the author explains us how this world works and all the culture and all the courts with the different fairies and different kind of personalities. I think that was more interesting than the whole main plot. I think it's a missed opportunity not to take advantage of those elements and make the story more rich or more interesting to read in a way. Maybe because I wasn't as invested in their love story and I was always trying to figure out other things to be more interested in. But the thing is, the writing of this book is not good. I really didn't like the overuse of metaphors during the story. I think the prose was a little bit too much for me. And also I think that there's a lot of scenes and a lot of explaining that took way longer than it should. I think that this book is 400 pages, it should have been 200 pages for sure. There's a lot of fluff, unnecessary fluff, and I think that overusing those elements aren't equal to good writing. I think that it's an attempt of good writing, but poorly executed. Let's read together some of the quotes I didn't like. Explaining like a sexual intercourse, it says, but every time was the same, a rush of shedding clothes and shared breath and tongues and teeth. It looks like a recipe to a very disgusting salad, and I didn't like it. Here's another one. I was as unburned as a piece of dandelion fluff, and he was the wind that steered me above the world. There you can see how this metaphor doesn't work. It's not good. Now let's discuss a little bit about this Farah Tamlin dynamic. It was so toxic and I wasn't a fan of it at all. First, I have to say that I'm not a huge fan of these unbalanced, violent, either physically or emotionally relationships in my romance novels. I know there's a lot of people that actually like those dynamics, but that's not my cup of tea personally. I love how the book always tries to remind us that Feyre is not a prisoner, when practically she is. Because in one way or another, she was forced to stay. She was like there because of the treaty, but then if she wanted to leave, then there's a world filled with monsters that she cannot defeat and she cannot face. So what was the point? And also there's literally a character that tells Feyre not to stay away from Tamlin because Tamlin was the only way she will be safe. So she was literally trapped inside that castle with Tamlin. So she had like no other choice in a way. Even though she tries to fight, there's something that's bigger than her and she cannot face that kind of threat. So she needs Tamlin to survive in a way. It's really weird. So basically she was a prisoner. And about their romance, it starts in a very toxic way that I really didn't like. So without talking much about spoilers, I can say that there's a scene in which Tamlin needs to get high in earth magic and he becomes this wild and violent being where he has no control over his impulses. He needs to go and mate with these female fairies because of the festival that was held at that time. And Feyre was told to stay in the castle, but she didn't listen. She went anyways, and then she went back because she realized that Tamlin could hurt her. But nevertheless, they meet in the castle after the festival, and there, like, Tamlin is like still wild and weird, and then he like beats her and leaves her bruised. And then he leads in a way that, no, I don't want to hurt you. Also, there's this huge character trait surrounding Feyre in which, like, I'm not like other girls. I don't like to wear dresses. And what does she do next? Wear a dress for Tamlin, bruised. And she says that she has never looked so beautiful in her life. That was so problematic to me that I couldn't see this relationship seriously afterward. I was always complaining about their dynamic, that it didn't work for me. And since I think that she was basically a prisoner and this whole scene I just described, I think she had Stockholm syndrome and fell in love with her captor. And this weird dynamic goes on and on. The book was always trying to convince me that their relationship was the best and I should root for them, when I was never rooting for them. I was always concerned and I really wanted them to just break up and move on with their lives. Also, I think that Tamlin as a character was really boring. There were not huge personality traits, just the fact that he was like kind of obsessed with her and he had this duty. But overall, he didn't have much of a personality. And I don't think that he was interesting to read either. Now about the other characters, my favorite ones were Rhysand and Lucien. I really like these grey characters in which you don't know if they're either evil or actually good people. I think that Rhysand was the clear example of that. I think that overall he was good realized as a character. I think he was the most rounded one in a way. I know he has a more starring role in the next book, but since I don't want to keep on reading this series, I'm just going to spoil myself and go and read it online. And now about Lucien, I think that I like his dynamic with Feyre and I like his relationship with Tamlin. I think he's a cool character and the whole Spring Court storyline would have been 10 times more boring if he wasn't there, so thank God that Lucien was part of that dynamic. The main villain of this book is so stupid. I didn't like it at all. I think Amarantha is just evil for the sake of being evil. And I don't know, I couldn't take her seriously at all. The way she speaks is so absurd. And these riddles, easy riddles, like what? Before finishing, let's talk about the ending. At first I was like, yes, something exciting is happening. And then that situation is reverted and I was like, really? Also, there's this moment where Feyre gets the answer of a very easy riddle, and I think that that scene was my least favorite of the book. Like, easily. It's so stupid. It makes no sense. It was very basic and tropey, but in the worst way possible. I was rolling my eyes while reading this scene, and I was like, with the book, why am I doing this? And also this book ends with a fairy corn scene. Yeah, and honestly, I'm a little bit disappointed of this book. I was expecting to laugh at it at least, or to have a little good time reading these weird fairy mating scenes, but it was dull and boring, and this book takes itself so seriously. I'm a huge Twilight fan because I can at least appreciate the camp and I can laugh at it. But this was not funny at all. So to wrap things up, I'm gonna give Court of Thorn and Roses 2 stars out of 5. One of the stars is due to this whole world building and lore that I really liked about this book, but I think it was not well integrated into the story, or at least make the story as interesting as it should be. And the second star goes to Lucian and Reason for being total icons, and also a little bit Nesta too. But unfortunately, I didn't like the way this book is written. The prose is not good, it's a little bit absurd. There's a lot of metaphors that are not well executed and just added for the sake of making it good writing when in fact it isn't. Farah is an okay character. I don't have much to say about her, but I think that she has elements that had been better explored by other female leads in fantasy stories. Tamlin was a bad character and a toxic love interest. I was never rooting for them, so yeah. So this was my review of A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. But before finishing, I had to say people were wrong when they told me not to read this book. And I was like, no, they weren't. This book is not for me, and it's maybe for you. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider subscribing to the channel, like down below, and I see you guys the next time.